Can we start? Okay. All right. Welcome to the Virtual Graphic Novel Club. This is June 1st, so I know some of you guys tuned in last week, and we're right back at you with today we're talking about the God of Mischief, Mr. Loki of the Marvel Universe. So Roland and I, I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name's Erica Ware.
I'm Roland Wellmaker.
So today is all about Marvel and all about Loki. I know we usually talk about heroes, but he's sort of in between. So we've covered some in betweens. So we've covered Catwoman for DC and some other characters. But today we're going to cover Loki, who is the god of mischief. Right. So Loki made his first appearance in Journey into the Mystery in number 85 in October 1962. As you see there, he appears to thwart his half-brother, the god of thunder, Thor. He also appeared early on in some of Marvel's early collections. He was in Venus, Goddess of War. He was a minor character, and he looked a whole lot different, but he was still Loki, the god of mischief. And so, but we're going to focus today on his adventures with his brother Thor and the Avengers and all of them. His origin story, sort of his first battle with Loki, as you can see here, Journey to Mystery, Loki's creators were Stan Lee, this particular Loki, Larry Lieber, who was the scripter, and of course Jack Kirby, who was the artist. Loki was the son of the frost giant king Loki, and due to his short stature, the king hid his son in the ice giant's fortress. And when Odin, ruler of Asgard, killed Loki, he took Loki to Asgard and raised him as his own. Loki was sort of a misfit in Asgard. He was considered short for the giants, but he looked nothing like the Asgardians either. He, as you can see, he has he has dark hair, or has golden locks, blue eyes, all of that. And so Loki, being the misfit of Asgard, kind of despised his brother Thor. And because Odin praised Thor, this made Loki super jealous. Loki looked for ways to gain the throne, so he was always looking for ways to trick his way into the throne. He loved playing tricks, which gave him the nickname God of Mischief. Odin grew tired of his trickery and his quest to steal the throne, so he imprisoned him in a mystical tree. When Loki freed himself, he went looking for his brother Thor on Earth, who was living by this time in disguise as Dr. Blake on Earth. He had an advantage over Thor because Blake was human, so Loki came up with a scheme to trick the Hulk into destroying train tracks with a fake bomb. Hulk then looks like he's going on a rampage, but he saves the train. But the heroes at the time, you have Iron Man, Wasp, and Ant-Man, think that Hulk has rampaged out. But Thor sees this with magic written all over it, so he then realizes that Loki is probably behind it. And this is where we get Avengers number 1. Loki is the reason that the Avengers assembled, and the team defeats Loki in Avengers number 1 also. Around this time, Loki also finds out that he is destined to initiate Ragnarok in Asgard. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. He works simultaneously to defeat Thor and initiate Ragnarok, and he eventually embraced his fate by slaying of his half-brother Balder. But we'll talk about that later also. So after the creation of the Avengers, Loki is like super mad because he is the reason the Avengers exist. So he decides for his, second plan of action to assemble Earth's mightiest villains to defeat the Avengers. So in Acts of Vengeance, great collection. If you get a chance, look it up. Loki tricks Doctor Doom, Kingpin, Red Skull, Magneto, the Wizard, and the Mandarin into joining forces together and help him defeat the Avengers. Now, we also know that because he's the god of mischief and he's known for his trickery, that wasn't always, there's more to his plan. So he did also trick these villains into assembling. And what his plan was to, instead of Magneto going against the X-Men or Kingpin going against Spider-Man, he decided mix the teams up, mix the villains up, send someone like the Wizard to the Fantastic Four and things like that. And so that's what he did. And because the teams were so caught off guard because they weren't battling their usual nemesis, they almost won. But of course, Loki had a trick up his sleeve and he was manipulating the villains also. Thor found out about this, and it was Loki that was behind the mayhem, and he, of course, kicked Loki's butt. But Loki had another trick up his sleeve, and he decides at this point to combine 3 Sentinels together and creates the Tri-Sentinels. But Spider-Man becomes Captain Universe, Cosmic Spider-Man, and defeats the Tri-Sentinels. So because of that, the villains are defeated. Loki goes back to the drawing board again, and he goes back to his mission to not only defeat his brother and take over the throne, but also to defeat Earth's mightiest heroes, which is the Avengers. For after this time, he decides to. I don't know if he decided, Roland. Did he decide, or he just had some children after this? After he takes a break from villainry for a little while, he has 3 children. Did he decide this, or was it just like?
No, it's in a period of time when he ran off, like, after
okay.
like you said, he was mad that he created the Avengers
And
and
he still
he
couldn't
couldn't get
defeat them.
anything to go right after that.
Yeah,
Because
okay.
they always thwarted him. So
Yes.
that was in his downtime.
So yeah, in his downtime, he sires 3 children with the goddess Angrboda, and the 3 offspring are the Midgard
serpent.
Midgard serpent. Okay, we're going to talk about him later too.
Yeah.
You have Fenris Wolf and Hela. Now, I know this sounds a little bit confusing because most of you are used to the Marvel Cinematic Universe of these characters, but Hela is actually Loki's daughter, not Odin and his wife's daughter. So we'll talk about that later too. Who is the goddess of death? Hela is the goddess of death. He goes back to his wicked ways. He actually gets married also during this time. So he does not marry Angrboda, but he tricks Sing. Is that her name? Singen. Yeah. Sigyn. So he tricks her by possessing as her true love Theric and convinces her to marry him. That marriage does not last. When he goes back to his trickery, he basically just uses her. And when he's locked away, she tries to break him out, but ends up actually killing Dr. Blake, the Thor of the body that Thor possesses on Earth. But then she puts a doppelganger there, and nobody knows that Blake is actually dead in some mountain somewhere. So after his little break and his little family time, he goes back to his old games, determined to claim the throne of Asgard from Odin when Odin enters his Odin sleep, hibernation. Though he made numerous efforts, Loki was ultimately threatened by Magong and Salter into surrendering the throne. The trick of the Avengers, and he tricks the Avengers and the Defenders into assembling the mystical evil eye, and Loki teams up with. We've talked about Dorm of the Dark in Doctor Strange before, and so of the Dark Dimension. The 2 superhero teams come out on top, and they prove themselves even mightier. So again, he is defeated by the Avengers, so he's back at square one. And during this time, also Odin sent Loki to Earth as a vagrant because he wakes up from his Odin sleep and is just absolutely mad that Loki is back to his evil ways and trickery. So, but he sends Loki to Earth as a disguised as a vagrant, but Loki was successful in gaining the throne from Asgard and made Asgard into his image for a brief period of time. Thor comes back and slays Loki during Ragnarok and puts his head on a stake. We'll talk about Ragnarok later too. But this does not kill Loki. His final attempt to prompt Ragnarok, he wields the Ura hammer, fixing Asgard in a continuous cycle of death and rebirth. Thor, irate that Asgard has been denied its true warrior's death. That's when he kills his brother, and Loki's head is still living, and Surtur is unleashed on his final assault on Asgard. Thor then confronts they who sit above in the shadows and the powers responsible for the destructive cycle and saw to their end. With the demise of Asgard, both brothers were consumed in its destruction. After the destruction of Ragnarok, the souls of the Asgardians were hidden within the mortals of Earth. So Loki somehow came to possess Sif's body and has transferred her spirit into an elderly woman. Balder, who is Loki's half-brother and Thor's brother, he actually killed Balder to initiate Ragnarok. He had someone kill Balder, basically, because of his trickery. We'll talk about that later, and whose essence is now in the Destroyer armor. They band together, and numerous Asgardians came to aid Thor into restoring Asgard on Earth, in none other than Oklahoma. Nice place to have Asgard, I guess. Thor was able to restore the Asgardian and gathered by Balder, and Loki was reborn as a woman. Unrelenting with his trickster ways, though, Loki is being benevolent and told Balder that he was also Odin's son. Soon after, Loki traveled through time to kill Odin's father, Bor, but manipulated younger Odin so that he would adopt him as a child. So that goes back to that story of Odin taking in Loki as a kid once he killed his father. Loki also returned, occupying the goddess body of Sif again. His trickery did not stop. He tricked Thor into killing his grandfather, Bor. You see this sort of vicious cycle, and this causes Thor to be banished from New Asgard by his brother Balder. With Thor banished, New Asgard is kind of left not defenseless, but without Thor there, they're weakened a little bit. And Loki then uses Norman Osborn to attack and destroy New Asgard. But after he sees how successful Osborn is in destroying New Asgard, he actually comes back and has a change of mind and starts defending New Asgard, but he dies in the final battle. Of course, we know Loki does not die, though. He comes back reincarnated in the body of a young boy. He's now known as Kid Loki in this time period. And he has none of the memories of his former life, so it's kind of a turning point for him and Thor. And you kind of see they sort of have this bond now. You have Kid Loki, and who has this great brotherly relationship to his big brother Thor. And so he and Thor had a close relationship, and Kid Loki looked up to him, but unfortunately, Kid Loki would have to sacrifice himself to his older self in order to save the world. And so when he does that, the old Loki is back, the adult Loki is back, but Kid Loki is sort of like a subconscious, like that little good versus evil on his shoulder, and he's always showing up to plague his older self and remind him of the good that is in him. So that's sort of where Loki is sort of in his history. Got some of his names that he goes by: the God of Mischief, the Prince of Lies, the Prince of Evil, the Trickster of Asgard, the Son of Secrets, the Lord of All Liars, Sao Sing?
Sozong.
Huh?
Sozong.
Sozong.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
Father Williams, Typhoon, and the Wizard of Lies. So as you can see, he kind of goes on. he's really known for his trickster ways, but he also is known for he could choose a side whenever he really wants to. When he's with the villains, he's also manipulating the villains. He's manipulating everyone. Like Loki is kind of all over the place, and he's looking out for who else but Loki.
No.
So here's some of his power sets. You want to take over, Roland?
Yeah. With Loki being, I guess you could call him an immortal, him being an Asgardian god. He's blessed with superhuman strength, an increased lifespan, and immunity to terrestrial diseases, meaning any diseases that humans would catch, like cancer or diabetes or anything, he's totally immune to. Resistance to conventional injury. He's not going to just fall and break a leg or an arm. He kind of bolsters his the magic that he already has with him, from being a god, but he bolsters that with black magic, who he was taught through someone we'll hear about later. He's able to shapeshift. He's able to astral project. He can rearrange molecules, cast illusions, and he has the power of telepathy, hypnosis, and teleportation. So everything a god would need. If you move to the next slide, a lot of Loki's story is based on the 9 realms of Norse mythology, since Loki is basically a character from Norse mythology brought into the comics. What Marvel did with the Loki, Thor, Odin story or whatever, they kept it rooted in Norse mythology. So here you can see basically a picture of Yggdrasil, which is known as the life tree or the world tree. And this tree is supposed to be the embodiment of the total world. And I guess you can say it contains really 10 realms, but a 10th realm was basically after a war that Odin had with the inhabitants of this 10th realm. He basically, lights just went up.
Yeah.
He basically banished this last realm from the regular realms. And we'll hear later, I won't name that realm now, but when we get to another slide, you'll find out what the name of that realm is. All right. So here we have Asgard, which is the realm of the Aesir gods, which are the current storyline of gods with, starting with Odin. And then your realm, the Vanir gods. Now, these were the gods, I guess you can say, if you were to look at Norse mythology, like Greek mythology, okay, I lost everything. But the Vanir gods were basically, I guess you can say, like the Titans of Greek mythology. They're the gods that came before the classical gods that you know.
Yeah, we kind of lost everything here. Our lights went out, so they're back on, but we gotta wait for the computers to reboot.
Okay.
But we're gonna have no slides for probably the next few things we talk about. So
I can finish talking about.
Okay.
About what we're talking about. Till that slide comes back up, if we can get it back up. Now I'm going purely by memory now.
Oh, but, okay.
I'm not going to go through all 9 worlds now. But after the realm of the Aesir gods and the realm of the Vanir gods, I forgot what the next realm is. Let's not talk about that until I have that right in front of me.
So you want to talk about Asgard?
Well, there's a reason I want to go in order.
Okay.
Because it's almost a hierarchy.
All right.
And it'll make sense to those that have watched the Marvel movies and have seen shows such as Thor: The Dark World and other things of such.
Yeah, because you have the place where the frost giants are, which is starts with a J.
That's Jotunheim.
Mm-hmm.
And then
That's
you have
where Loki is from. That's where
right,
his home place is from.
right. And then you have the place where Malekith and Curse hail from, which was shown in the Thor the Dark World.
Yeah. Then
That's
you have
that may be Muspelheim, if I
yeah,
remember correctly.
and then you have mid where humans are.
Midgard,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the Earth is called Midgard. It kind of sits in the middle of the tree.
Gotcha.
So you have those realms that are above Midgard and those realms that are below Midgard, and then a couple that are supposed to be, I guess you can say, kind of equivalent, but different worlds, different planes of existence in their own right.
Gotcha. All right. Looks like we'll be back up in 2 seconds. As soon as
Yeah,
I
mine
can.
ain't come back up either. Something told me to print that thing out.
Ah, yeah.
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, probably a transformer or something blew in the air. It's these heat spikes.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring it up on my laptop.
Yeah.
Quick, so we can jump right back in. All right, sorry about that, people.
Yeah. All right. So we were on those 9 realms. Let me go back to that slide. Oh, the dark elves. That's what you were talking about.
Is it back up?
Yeah, it's coming. It's connecting. There it is.
And
All
we're
right.
back.
Can you see it? All right, there we
Yes.
go.
Okay. All right, here we go. All right, let's go back to Vanaheim, which is the realm of the Vanir gods. Like I said before, the Vanir gods are the equivalent of what the Titans would be, and they're the gods that came before the classical gods that we know of, Odin, Thor, Loki, and the like. You have Elfheim, which is the realm of the light elves. That's one of those realms that it would not be equivalent to Midgard, but more equivalent to Asgard and Vanaheim. Then you come down, you have Jotunheim, which is the realm of the giants, more so the ice giants. Svartalfheim, which is the realm of the dwarves and the dark elves. Now, I didn't know this because when I read when I read Norse mythology, the dwarves and the dark elves were kind of two different races. In the movies, though, they combine them, and the dwarves and the dark elves kind of are the same race, but the dark elves are more or less the soldiers and the what they call and the magicians of the court, whereas the dwarves are the workers, and they're the ones who are known for forging basically the weaponry that you hear about in Norse mythology and in the comics. Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, the axe, Stormbreaker, and a couple of other items were all forged by the dwarves of Svartalfheim.
All right.
Okay, so next we have Midgard. We already said that represents humans. Niflheim, which is a realm of ice and mist. Now, Niflheim is one of those, I guess you can say, what's the word for it? Like if we go back to the days that not prehistoric.
Oh, like the Ice Age?
Well, it's a world that's covered in ice, and it's totally held together by magic.
Oh, okay.
The magic that holds it together, though, is kind of is kind of wanting. So the area is dilapidated. It does not support life.
Oh, okay.
It does not support life. Um, the next realm is Muspelheim, which is the realm of fire and chaos. Now, this realm does not support life either. It's one of the first. I think between Niflheim and Muspelheim, they're like two of the first realms
Mm-hmm.
where everything about it is basically at its core what it is. Like I said, the realm of fire and chaos, and the other one is the realm of ice and mist. Now, the realm of fire and chaos does have an individual that reigns supreme, and that's Surtur.
Okay.
So, if you remember in one of the movies where Thor fought the fire demon, and remember he had to take his crown off
Mm-hmm.
in order to defeat him. Well, that's Surtur. He's the head of Muspelheim, and there have been many times that he is the one who is, when Loki sets off Ragnarok, he is the one that's going to rise and destroy Asgard in the
So
story.
was he that big fire thing at the end?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's
Yeah.
Surtur.
Yeah. Okay.
The last realm, well, the second to last realm is Helheim or Hell, realm of the dead. And as we've seen, this is basically looked after by Loki's daughter, Hela. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Asgard, like we said before, is a small planetary body that serves as home to the Asgardians, which are a race of beings recognized by humans on Earth as the deities of Norse mythology. Marvel would have you believe that they are just aliens. Okay. Asgard is connected to the Earth, known as Midgard, by the Bifrost Bridge, which is also known as the Rainbow Bridge, which is that causeway or mode of transportation that Heimdall, who was played by
Idris Elba.
Idris Elba,
Idris Elba. There we
yes,
go.
you know that's the Bifrost Bridge that connects Asgard to Earth.
All right.
Okay, Jotunheim, like we said before, is one of the 9 realms and the home of the frost giants. Um, the Casket of Ancient Winters was taken from Jotunheim when Odin raided and killed King Loki. It is actually one of the items that they were trying to get back from Asgard. The reason why the war between the Frost Giants and Asgard took forever. In the movies, they kind of changed it around where they were not looking for the Casket of Ancient Winters. They were looking for the Casket of Ancient Winters and the Tesseract.
Mm.
So this is the land that King Loki ruled until Odin came in and basically killed him and
And
took his son.
yeah,
Yes,
and everyone else.
right.
Right. So we have Odin Borson's father, Asgardian All Father is another name he goes by. Odin's grandfather Buri is thought to be the first Asgardian, but Odin was also he's Thor's father. He's Loki's half father, but also there's some other children, Angela, and what's his name? Barter. Odin was visited by his father, the boar spirit, and learned of another father would fall, leaving behind a son who Odin would adopt, and the son would betray him, who is Loki, and who Odin slayed King Loki, and he took his son and raised him as his own. Um, Odin has the ability of flight, interdimensional transportation, and the power to heal injuries and communicate with others across dimensional planes. He can also impart an Odin power, which objects weapons. He is granted mystical strength to Thor's hammer. What do you call it? Majora?
Majora.
Mjolnir. Yeah. Beta Ray Bill's hammer, Stormbreaker, Eric Martinson's mace, Thunderstrike, and Norval's hammer, Crusher. So he kind of gives all those weapons their power. He also enters at regular intervals. He enters what's called an Odin sleep. I believe in Ragnarok, you see that at the beginning of Ragnarok, where Odin has what we thought Odin. We thought at the end of Dark World that Odin was still, there, but actually that was Loki. And at the beginning of Ragnarok, you see Loki still impersonating Odin. During that time, Odin is in his Odin sleep, which is a deep coma-like slumber that restores Odin his power and allows him to maintain his cosmic might and near invincibility. So that is Odin father, all father.
Okay. Next we have Thor Odenson, better known as Thor, the Asgardian god of thunder. Now, Thor, being Odin's son, basically caused a lot of, I don't want to say strife in Loki's life, but Loki was very jealous of the relationship that Odin had with Thor, and as well as with the relationship that Thor had with the people. So at any turn, he was always trying to upend Thor or anything that Thor was doing. He was always playing jokes on his brother. It's part of the reason why they gave him the title God of the Trickster God.
Trickster God.
So basically, Thor, the power given to Thor from Odin is the fact that he can basically summon and wield thunder and lightning. He uses his mystical hammer Mjolnir to do this at any end, and also uses it as a bludgeoning weapon that will always basically come back to him.
Yes.
The hammer is basically blessed with the power that it can only be lifted by those worthy of its power. So Thor, although he carries it, he has lost the ability to wield his own hammer, and others have gained the ability to pick it up. A few of those in the past, that gained the power, we think Captain America, the Vision, the Silver Surfer, and I do believe there was one other person who was able to pick it up. And I can't
right now, it is the current Thor is.
Oh, and Jane Foster.
Jane Foster is
the current
she
Thor.
is the Thor. Yeah.
Right.
Because Thor is dead.
So basically, Thor has ancient skills and experience in combat, and he is basically one of the best fighters and strongest characters in the Marvel universe as such.
Yep, and an original Avenger.
Yep.
All right. So we have Alderif. I'm gonna butcher that name, so I'm not even gonna do it. Alderif, aka Angela. Now, again, like I said earlier, Angela is Odin and Freya's daughter. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Hela is put in this spot as the lost daughter of Odin and Freya. But it's actually Angela here who is the firstborn daughter of the two of them. She becomes the leader of the hunt. She has been a part of Guardians of the Galaxy and the Guardians of Asgard. She's a member of both of those teams. She was created by Neil Gaiman and Todd McFarlane. She first appeared in the Spawn comics. She is the long lost sister of Thor, who was raised in heaven or heathen, but as an angel assassin. So her whole thing was she was stolen as an infant. She was never told about her Asgardian birth, like she's Asgardian. So she becomes an assassin for the 10th realm. Now, the 10th realm, Roland mentioned that earlier, that there were at one point in time 10 realms. Heaven was one of them. And Odin and Asgard and Heaven got into a war, and basically Odin wrote Heaven out of existence.
Hey,
Like,
let me stop you right there.
okay.
It is heaven.
Oh, it is heaven. Okay.
It is heaven. Yeah,
Okay.
one of the things you got to look at when it comes to the names.
Yeah. They
They
sound
change
like,
them. They a lot of them come from. They have like semblance with a lot of Christian things that we
okay.
that we know about. And if you look at her name, Aldrich, her last name is Odin's daughter. So that's like if you look at the children, and that's something in the Viking thing.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you were the son of somebody, then you were
So
their son. So that's
so
why
that's Odin's son.
right. That's why it's
Odin's son,
Thor Odenson, and
and
her name is
Odin's
Aldrich,
daughter.
Odin's daughter. Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah, no, not the Norse mythology. But yes, so she was created by Neil Gaiman, and he wrote some of he wrote actually Norse mythology in the early 2000s. That's when
Right.
she premiered. So she comes back, doesn't know she's Asgardian, and she basically comes back and is introduced to her brother, her father, this whole that she didn't know anything about, and she kind of struggles with this throughout her existence. Like I said, she was a part of the Guardians of the Galaxy for a little while. She becomes the Queen of Hell, so Hela is disposed, but she does this only to save her lover Sarah. So once she saves her lover Sarah, she kind of gives up the power because she says it's too much power for one person to possess, and she does not want to possess it. Um, Another great thing about her, she is about 6'2", 480 pounds of all muscle. A lot of these characters are like that, but it's dealing with the mass, and so yeah, we talked about that earlier. But she ends up being right now she's a member of the Guardians of Asgard with Valkyrie and one other character we're about to talk about, who is the Punisher, not the Punisher. She's not the Punisher, but the Executioner. Um, and so yeah, she joins that team, and they're kind of like the defenders of Asgard, basically. But they're defending not so much Asgard itself, but threats against Asgard. So she's a member of that team. But she's pretty as you can see, she's pretty ruthless there.
All right. The next one, if you look at these pictures, this is a picture of King Loki as he appeared in the first Thor movie. Um, this is Loki's real father. At Loki's birth, his father was ashamed of his small size. So basically, what he did, he hid him in his fortress and kept him under lock and key. If you look over on the right hand side of the screen, you see that picture. That's what the ice giants looked like in their battle gear. So they cut a very imposing feature. I mean, so for Loki to just be honestly just a normal size as a human, that
Yeah.
he wasn't going to strike fear into anybody. So they kept him locked away because of this. So when Odin basically went to war with Jotunheim, when he was able to basically make it to the palace and he killed King Lofi, they found Loki running around hiding in the palace. And with him being so small, basically closer to their own size, they basically took him in, and Odin, remembering the prophecy, went on and adopted him as his own. And so that's King Lofi there.
All right. So we got Hela, who is Loki's daughter. Okay, I know that's a little confusing because, again, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, she is considered Odin and Freya's daughter, but she is not. She is actually Loki's daughter, and she has some brothers that Roland's going to talk about. But she's the daughter of the god of mischief. She is the powerful goddess of death. Her dominion has no bounds. She's the ruler of the realms of Hell and Niflheim. Hela also holds sway over all the deceased souls of the Asgardians. So when you die, she gets your soul. And she torments her kin, Thor and Odin, across all reality. So she is not friends with her family. That would be an interesting family reunion. She has the power of death, and she can cast energy beams that can wither, age, and kill any target. So if she hits you with those energy beams, you're pretty much done. She can revive, summon, and command souls of the dead, and she can also return lost souls to their living bodies. So she holds a lot of power, and she can teleport across all realms. And she can even open portals through time, so she could time travel also. She has a mighty cloak that grants her nearly all her powers. Without it, she finds herself almost powerless. So that cloak is very important to her.
All right. So here we go with these are the other two children of Loki. And we'll start with Jormungandr, who is basically known as the Midgard serpent. According to Norse legend, he is the son of the Asgardian prince Loki and the sorceress Angerboda. Both Loki and Angerboda were descended from the frost giants of Jotunheim and were of humanoid appearance. However, the sons of Angerboda bore Loki, Jormungand and the Fenris wolf did not. It's been suggested that they were both born as sentient animals because their parents each had the magical ability to change his or her own shape. Hence, they were both born in the form of the animal that their parents had assumed at the moment that they were conceived. Presumably, they were both the size of a human infant when they were born. But the difference between Jormungandr and Fenris Wolf is that when the Midgard serpent was born, Odin knew that he was going to be a danger to Asgard. So what he ended up doing, he had him banished basically to the oceans of Earth. And not only did he survive in the oceans, but he grew to an incredible size. And at his full size, he was enormous enough to encircle the entire planet. Hence his name, the Midgard serpent. Now, it was also prophesied that on the day of Ragnarok, when it said that most of the gods of Asgard will perish, the Odin's son, Thor, god of thunder, would kill the Midgard serpent. But Thor himself would also die as a result of the Midgard serpent's venom. The Fenris wolf has a similar background, but he ends up being a wolf, and he ends up being able to traverse the lands between Asgard and Hell, basically. The Fenris wolf has free realm. I mean, free, he has, what do you call it? He can roam free, basically.
Yeah.
They don't like him in Asgard, as he is a very destructive force. So he basically stays by Hela's side in the movie, as you saw. But in the comics, they have him actually chained to a rock, and he's part of the Ragnarok. Part of the Ragnarok prophecy as well, in that he is the one that will take out Odin.
And he does.
Yes.
All right. So as you can see, we're not taking our usual like allies versus enemies, because Loki really has lots of enemies and lots of you can't really say he has a lot of allies because he's always tricking people. So he just has a lot of people that's in his life that but one of them is Alpha Flight. Alpha Flight is basically Canada's superhero group. Unlike the Avengers, Canada decides to create their own supergroup. One of their first members is actually Wolverine. Oh, there we go again.
Yeah.
We got Wolverine here, who was a part of Alpha Flight. And basically, Wolverine decides to leave Alpha Flight and go on to the X-Men. When he does that, this creates an issue within the X-Men. They come after Wolverine, and it creates a rift between X-Men and Alpha Flight. But in the end, they add some new heroes, and they sort of let Wolverine go on his own. Loki has many run-ins with Alpha Flight. He goes, hold on just a second. The power went out again here. It's a great day for power outages at the branch. But yeah, Loki has many run-ins with Alpha Flight. So this is kind of like another team that he sort of, you have the Avengers that he goes up against a lot. And then you also have Alpha Flight because he's constantly making them mad. Okay. And I'm going to share my screen from, try to share my screen from here. So we can continue and present. Okay, so yes. Can we all see it?
It's loading.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
So yeah, so Alpha Flight helps Thor sometimes on occasion to protect Asgard. But they pretty much mind their business when it comes to most of these things because they stay in Canada. They're funded by the Canadian government, and that creates a lot of strife in between the team and the government. So yeah, Alpha Flight disbands for a little while, but they come back together. They're currently led by Captain Marvel. She's their current leader right now. So, and they're still around. They're nice Canadian selves.
All right. Next up, we have the Asgardian goddess Amora, who grows up to become the formidable sorceress, the Enchantress. And she is known by the Enchantress because she often seduces, uses her powers of seduction, and uses her allure and mystical abilities to control the hearts and minds of others. We have seen her in regular TV. They cast her in an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I can't remember what season. And she was doing just that. Nobody knew who she was. She showed up in Sif, the one of the warriors that Thor hangs out with, the female warrior that hangs with the Warriors 3, which is supposed to be Thor's real love interest. Actually, is called in to basically handle her. So I don't have my notes up right now, but I have no problem. I have where it says that she was born somewhere in Asgard, parentage unknown. But while she was in adolescence, she ran away to the land of the Norns and apprenticed herself with the sorceress Karnilla. And Karnilla was known as one of the most powerful sorceresses in the whole Asgardian dimension. So Amora basically studies all the basic arts of Asgardian magic until she gets expelled for being too undisciplined. The rest of her skills, she basically picks up from seducing other Asgardian magi and wizards. All right. She has had run-ins with most of our favorite heroes. One of her first run-ins happens to actually be with Brunhild, the
Yes.
Valkyrie,
Mm-hmm.
and basically what she did, she tried to get Brunhilde to join her in a conquest, but when Brunhilde realized that Amora had some real immoral ways and everything, she basically ended their partnership. And for this, Amora basically trapped Brunhilde in a magical crystal of souls. And so in the comics, and it would be probably right around the same time that we saw her as showing up in one of the other movies. And I can't remember which Thor movie she showed up in, but that first Thor movie she showed in, she would have basically, in the comics, she was freed and she went her own way. She didn't want to deal with
Yeah.
Asgard for a minute. So they kind of showed
Yeah, she
that.
kind of drops out. She drops
Right.
out.
But they showed that as her being a what's the word for it? An outcast, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
she left on her own.
she did.
Uh, one of the storylines that if you pick up any Thor or Marvel book and the Enchantress is in it, more times than likely, she may be working with the likes of me, but normally she's trying on Odin. I mean, on Thor.
Four. Yeah.
She Thor will not let go of his love interest with Sif, but Enchantress is the one who's trying to pull those strings to make it happen, and it won't. She can't understand. She's tried to get rid of Jane Foster in the past as well.
Yeah, his main love interest is Sif, and the reason they said
Right.
they didn't go with Sif in the movie, I don't think the person who played Sif, I forget her name, she couldn't commit to multiple movies. She ended
Mm.
up being on that television show that's on NBC with the girl with all the tattoos on her.
Oh,
So because of that, they made Jane his main love interest, and then she could have come back. Sif could have come back, but she
well,
didn't come back for Dark World, and she didn't come back for Ragnarok.
well,
So
you know what that's okay, because in the comics, you have to realize. Remember when um when Odin tells Thor that he must regain his humility, and he
mm-hmm,
sends him to Earth
mm-hmm,
and turns Mjolnir into an old walking cane.
yeah,
That and he is turned into Donald Blake. Well,
mm-hmm,
Jane Foster is the love interest of Donald Blake in the comics back in the day. That's is the so in or on Earth, Jane Foster is his love interest, but in Asgard, it's Sif
yeah,
with the enchantress trying to jump in between everybody.
yeah.
So
All right, all right. And last on our list, we have Scrooge the Executioner, or as he goes by, mostly the Executioner. You can see he was played by Carl Urban there in the film, the tattoos on his head. Um, he is the illegitimate son of a storm giant and a goddess born in Asgard. Scorim Scourge was ostracized by the storm giants for his relatively diminutive size. When we say diminutive, we mean extremely large.
right, if he can hold a 280-pound double-bladed axe.
Yeah. Hey, Roland, which
Yeah.
stories were some of the what books were some of the stories of Enchantress? I know from my looking at, it's one of the questions we got in the chat. When I was doing my research on her, she kind of was in the early stories, like in the 60s and the 70s, and
Yes.
towards the 80s and the 90s, she kind of falls off. So
Right. And
yeah.
yeah, once you get to the mid to the late 80s, she's
Hmm.
no longer that main. She no longer has that main character story pool. So if you want to find a lot of the storylines that have the Enchantress in it, I would go to the earlier Thor books.
Yeah. And we actually have some of those anthologies here to check out. We have some of the early collections of Thor here at Forest Park. I know we do. Collections, some of the graphic novels that have some of his early stories in it. But we'll also share later with the new service that we have also, so that you can look those up also. But yes, the Executioner, he is half Storm Giant, half Asgardian. And so he, again, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he is at Hela's right hand when she comes to destroy Asgard. But actually, he is allies a lot with Enchantress. She allied with him and with Loki to trick Thor into releasing the giants on Earth. And so, but Thor overpowers them and drives the giants back. And the Executioner here is summoned into a modern era relative of future by Zakaro, the Tomorrow Man, and opposes the Fantastic Four and the Thor Corps. And so, yeah, he's kind of just sort of a right-hand man to actually Enchantress more than Hela. He does wield a 280-pound double-axe sword, as you can see there in his picture. He can summon, he has the mental command, and he can control it with mental command and direct movements. He can also allow teleportation, summon energy, like heat and light and freezing and ice on Earth, Arctic region. He has Destructive Blast, and he has the energy to sap up Hulk's gamma-powered strength. The axe blade is highly durable. Its handle is less so, so that handle breaks a lot, but the blade is pretty strong. He's done a lot of evil in his lifetime, and so it kind of drives his weapon too. So that evil that he possesses sort of possesses that weapon. But he is also one of the members of the Guardians of Asgard too. So he does have a turn of heart at times to save his people.
They showed that in the movie as well.
Yeah, when he turns his back on Hela and decides to defend those who are leaving Asgard trying to escape.
You know, in the movie, they kind of showed him as being, I don't want to call him two-faced and backstabbing, but they kind of showed him someone that was out for himself.
Well,
whereas, you know, someone who was never meant to do harm or evil, who just kind of got sucked into that position so that, because he didn't want to get killed by Hela right there.
Yeah.
You know, in
the
comics, it was a little different.
He kind of chose his sides in the comics. He's done a lot of evil. He's worked a lot with Loki, worked a lot with Enchantress, especially early on. But like I said, he's currently a member of the Guardians of Asgard. So I keep wanting to say Guardians of the Galaxy, but he's Guardians of the Asgard. And sort of he actually ends up dying a hero when holding back the forces of hell to give his allies time to escape, and his name is actually spoken in honor in Asgard now. So he is he died a hero basically. Even in the movie he died a hero. So yeah.
Okay, now I'm gonna be real quick with this because Balder is one of those characters that actually should probably have a whole.
Sorry, my bad.
Balder should probably have a whole thing on himself.
Oh goodness.
He has that much. He has just as much history as Thor and Loki, basically.
Yeah.
So Balder is basically the half brother and close friend of Thor, and this is another one of those things that Loki was jealous about. The friendship that Balder and Thor had was different than I guess you can say, the nitpicking and stuff that went on between Thor and Loki. Balder, if you know anything about Norse mythology, Balder was known as Balder the Beautiful. and Balder the Brave.
Mhm.
So one of the things that always, outside of his relationship with Thor, one of the things that made Loki jealous was that the people loved Balder. He was basically one of Asgard's basically heroes in waiting. He had a bigger stature than Thor, actually. Thor only had his stature because he was the god of thunder. Um, when Odin finds out that to bring about Ragnarok, it will be brought about by the death of one of his sons, and he finds out that that son is Balder. And so, similar to, I can't remember whose story it was in Greek mythology, but they were told,
Was it the
what's
guy
the
with the Achilles?
Achilles? Okay, yes,
Yeah.
he is the Achilles of basically of Norse mythology. Okay, so they find out that he will be basically immune to anything and everything except for mistletoe. And so his mother basically does all the enchantments. If you remember the story of Achilles, his mother dipped him in a whale,
Mhm.
basically to make him what's the word for it? Make him
Indestructible, basically.
indestructible. But because she had to hold him upside down by the bottom of his heel, it was
Mhm.
just that little piece of his heel that was not protected. So
Yes.
Balder, his story is similar, but excuse me, is different as that he's indestructible except for if he's attacked with mistletoe of all things. So
Yeah.
basically, the only thing nobody knew about his invulnerability. Somehow Loki tricks it out of one of the parents. I think it was the mother. He finds out that mistletoe is what killed Balder. And so he sets events in motion that end up tricking the blind god Hoder into firing a mistletoe tipped arrow at Balder and ends up killing Balder. But lo and behold, Odin sees this going down and he knows that it's not time for Ragnarok, even though Ragnarok has occurred like over the
Over and
century.
over again.
Yeah, over and over again. Odin brings Balder back, uh, thereby holding off Ragnarok for that moment. And like I say, eventually Balder does die. Ragnarok is brought about, and we have everything starts over. So that's Balder's place in the Marvel universe and with Loki.
All right. And last on our list is Dr. Bruce Branner, aka the Incredible Hulk. Banner is not necessarily a friend of Loki's, but he is a he does not like Loki. The scene in Avengers #1 where he basically stomps Loki into the ground is how he feels about Loki. Uh, but he is one of the unwitting humans that Loki has taken control over. Like I said, Avengers #1 in the comics, he tricks Hulk into destroying the train tracks that then would have put the people that were on the train in danger. Hulk saves those people, but it looks like Hulk is raging out. So the heroes decide to kind of come against Hulk, and then Thor comes in and kind of tells them that, hey, this is my brother Loki. This is not Hulk. This is not Hulk's doing. He's been seduced by basically magic. He uses him many times in his pawns. It has a lot to do with the fact that Hulk has the sort of when Dr. Bruce Banner is Dr. Bruce Banner, he is a doctor, he's a scientist, he is all of those things. When he is Hulk, he sort of has the mind of a child, so he's susceptible to magic and things like that. But he's still a powerful being. And even though Loki tricks him a lot, he is also very fearful of him. He's very scared of, of Hulk, as he should be. Um, when he is Professor Hulk, he's very well aware of Loki and the fact that Loki can control him, and uses that knowledge to threaten and scare Loki while working with the Avengers. So Banner, who we have not covered yet, but I'm sure we will one day, is one of his nemesis to say the least. Like he can't stand Loki, and that is all throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because he and Loki do not get along. And that's what we got for Loki. Got some of our work cited here, so if you want to do some more deep, in-depth studying of some of these characters that we've talked about, these are some of the places we got the information from. And you can always contact us if you want the actual list. Some good stuff today. We got some new material in at the library. We got the Fantastic Four and Antithesis in last week. Muhammad Ali's Kinshasa 1974 fight, which is actually nonfiction, but it's a graphic novel that is uses the iconic photos from the fight, but also illustrated about the rumble in the jungle. Muhammad was pitted against, nicknamed Rumble in the Jungle. It's pitted Muhammad Ali, desperate for his comeback at the world champion belt. This is after he is sort of banished from boxing after not refusing to enter the draft and go into the Vietnam War. He was sort of blacklisted. And this is, in order to fight, he had to go all the way to Africa to fight. He could no longer fight in America. So Rumble in the Jungle, it's George Foreman and against Muhammad Ali. So if you guys want to check it out, it's here and available. We also have Lucifer, Volume 4, The Devil at Heart. Finally, the devil is going to hell and still reeling from the aftermath of the wild hunt, and the Lightbringer travels to the land of the dead and the damned. So this is Lucifer Volume 4. Yeah, these are all available to check out. As far as I know, as of yesterday, they were all available to check out. But also check out some of our other new material too that we've talked about in the last couple of weeks also. We also have a new, like I said, we had a new service, which is Comics Plus. So this is new. Brand new, like last week. You could borrow and read thousands of digital comics and graphic novels and manga from the library. So all you have to do is go to claytonpl.org and look under ebooks and the tab for learning and research and ebooks, and click on Comics Plus and just enter in your library card number. You do have to have a Clayton County library card to access this. You can access thousands of comics at your tablet or computer or smartphone. And it makes it where you can download it also to read them offline too. So that is an exciting new service that we're offering here in Clayton County. I know that I'm excited to check it out and see what it's all about. But yeah, as I was saying earlier, we have some of those classic Thors here, but I'm sure you can find it here on Comics Plus too, because it has thousands of comics from Marvel to DC to some of the independent comic publishers also. So yeah, check that out. Use your library card, get free access to all of these books. Roland, when are we meeting again?
Yes, ma'am. All right, so we'll be back on June the 15th with the Rainbow Heroes of DC and Marvel.
Now, I know a lot of you have a question about what are Rainbow Heroes and the new term. It is June 1st. It's Pride Month, and so we're going to be talking about some of our heroes that identify as LBGT in these universes. So we're only doing Marvel and DC, and June 15th at 4 p.m. Copy the link, join us then for just some insight. Some of these characters we've talked about in the past because we've covered them, like Batwoman. And some of them will be new covering, but they'll just be little snippets into their lives. We're not doing in-depth covering of this, but we love to have the representation and just, yeah, show off Pride Month. But all right, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks, not next week, but 2 weeks.